Don't bother calling me when she dies.
Omari said it loud enough for his mistress to hear, then slipped his phone into his pocket and smiled. Behind the hospital room door, his wife was fighting for every breath, while the man she had sacrificed everything for walked away without looking back. His mother shut the door behind him. His sister laughed and followed him toward the elevator. The biggest mistake of their lives wasn't leaving her behind. It was underestimating the woman they were leaving behind. She's stable enough, and I have a room full of people who actually matter. Come, Omari, the car is waiting, his mother said. Grief is a waste of a good evening. Bisola whispered, whatever she was worth to you, it's over now. They had no idea what they were walking away from. Naledi lay in that bed with a tube in her arm and a newborn daughter in the nursery down the hall. She had given Omari 9 years, her savings, her name, and the quiet fortune her father left behind. She had given up her own career to build his, and on the worst night of her life, he chose a party, his mother chose the door, his sister chose to laugh. Every face she loved had turned to stone. He had no idea the woman he was throwing into the storm was the one who quietly held everything he loved. On the small table beside her bed sat a sealed envelope, worn soft at the corners. Her father's handwriting on the front. She had carried it for years. She had never once opened it. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. But Omari had not always been this cruel. 9 years earlier, he was a man with big dreams and empty pockets. Naledi was the one with the steady job and the quiet inheritance. She believed in him when no one else did. She used her savings to register his first small logistics company. She co-signed the lease on his first warehouse. When a supplier needed to see cash, it was her money that appeared, quietly, without a word. She never asked for credit. She only asked that he remember. For a while he did. He would come home tired and hold her hand and call her his whole world. None of this is mine, he used to say. It's ours. Then the money came, and the money changed him. The bigger the company grew, the smaller she became in his eyes. He stopped saying ours. He started saying mine. He hired new people who did not know her name. He bought suits that cost more than their first month of rent. And slowly he began to look at his wife like she was furniture from a house he had outgrown. His mother made it worse. Folake had never liked that her son married a woman who carried herself like she owned the room. At every dinner she found a new soft blade to slide in. You used to work in a hospital, didn't you, Naledi? Sweet, but not a real career like my son's. A woman should know when her season is finished, dear. Naledi would only smile and pass the plate. She did not argue. She was pregnant now after years of trying, and she was tired in a way sleep could not fix. She told herself the coldness was stress. She told herself the merger was to blame. Omari talked about that merger like a man in love. A giant firm wanted to buy into his company. It would make him rich beyond his family's oldest dreams. And there was a new name in the house now, Bisola. His investor relations partner, the one who called after midnight, the one who stood too close in every photograph from every event, the one Folake called such a capable girl, so suited to this world. Naledi saw all of it. She said nothing. Not yet. One evening she found a folder on his desk, the merger paperwork, and clipped to the front a list of conditions the buyers required before they would sign. One line was highlighted in his own hand. Existing debt facility must be cleared or approved by lender of record before closing. She did not know what it meant, but she wrote it down, and she kept the envelope from her father in her purse the way she always did, the way she had since the day he died. She had still not opened it. Then the baby came early, and everything broke at once. There were complications, too much blood, a long night of doctors moving fast and saying words she could not hold on to. She remembered reaching for Omari's hand. She remembered him pulling it back because his phone was ringing. She remembered his mother in the hallway, checking her watch. She remembered the sound of her husband's laughter fading toward the elevator, while a machine screamed beside her bed. Then the door closed, and she was alone. She did not die that night, but something in her did, and something else, something harder, was born in its place. 3 days later she was awake, weak, and holding her daughter for the first time. A nurse handed her a small stack of things Omari had left at the front desk. No flowers, no note, just her purse and a folded document. It was a separation agreement, already drawn up, already signed by him, dated the day after she nearly died. She read it twice. She did not cry. She reached for her phone and called the one number her father had made her memorize as a girl. "If you are ever truly in trouble," he had said, "call Kwame, before anyone else, before even your husband." Kwame Mensah arrived the next morning in a plain gray suit, with a leather folder under his arm. He was older now, silver at the temples, but his eyes were exactly as she remembered, calm, careful. He looked at the separation papers for a long time. "Do not sign anything today," he said quietly. "Not this, not anything they put in front of you. Say you are too weak to read. It is even true." "He left me here to die, Kwame." "I know." He folded his hands. "So we do not plan revenge. We plan carefully. We handle this the way we handle evidence, slowly, correctly, so that nothing can ever be undone." She nodded. Then he said the thing that changed the air in the room. "Naledi, your father left you far more than you think." She waited for him to explain. He did not. "In time," he said, snapping the folder shut. "There is more, but not yet. First you must get strong, and you must start writing down everything, every account you can remember, every company name, every date. You do the remembering, I will do the finding." He stood to leave. "Kwame, more than what?" He paused at the door. "More than money," he said. And then he was gone. She did not sleep that night either. She sat up with a notebook and her daughter against her chest, and she wrote every account, every company, every strange thing she had ignored for 9 years. And at the top of the page, without knowing why, she wrote the highlighted line from the merger folder, "Lender of record." She did not know yet that she was writing her own way out. The first thing they found did not make sense. Kwame came back within the week with a printout of Omari's business accounts. He set it in front of her and pointed to a single recurring charge, a monthly transfer going out for years to a company she had never heard of. "Do you know this name?" he asked. She shook her head. "Neither did I, so I looked." He tapped it. "It is a shell, and the money does not stop there. It moves, twice, and then it lands somewhere very interesting." He closed the folder before she could read the last page. "I need one more day to be certain, but Naledi, this charge has your maiden name on the paperwork, not his, yours." Her hands went cold. "I never opened that account." "I know," Kwame said. "That is the problem, or perhaps, for us, the gift." He left her with that. She sat with the baby and stared at the wall and asked herself the only question that mattered. Why would her husband hide money under her name without telling her? She would not sleep again that night either. 2 days later, Kwame returned with a second document, and this one had Omari's company logo on it. It was a loan agreement, a large one, years old, the note that had funded Omari's biggest expansion, the one that made him a serious man in a serious room. "Read the lender," Kwame said softly. She read it. The lender of record was a private trust, Obiora Holdings. "Her father's name," she whispered. "Yes. Omari borrowed from my father's trust." "Omari borrowed from your father's trust," Kwame said, "and I do not believe he knows whose trust it truly is. Your father set it up quietly, through layers, on purpose. Omari thinks he is dealing with faceless money. Kwame leaned forward. The debt on his company, it has been yours all along. He has been paying your family for years and never knew it. She sat very still. One rung of the truth had turned, but Kwame had already stood, already gathering his folder. There is more, but you are not ready for the next part. Rest. I will come Friday. Kwame? Friday, Naledi. He was protecting her the way her father used to, a little at a time, because the whole weight at once would break a woman still healing. While she healed, they were not resting. A courier delivered a letter to her hospital room. It was from Folake's lawyer. It informed Milady in polite and freezing language that in light of her medical fragility and emotional instability, the family felt it best to remove her name from the marital home and from her small listed stake in the company, for everyone's protection. A clean break, kinder for all. Attached was a photograph, sent to her separately from Bisola. It was a picture of Nalady's old office at the company, the one she had built from nothing, now stripped bare. Empty walls, empty desk. The caption read, "Some spaces feel better once the past is removed." Nalady looked at that empty room for a long time. She did not scream. She simply photographed the letter, sent it to Kwame, and wrote underneath it, "They are moving faster, so will we." Then she found something on her own. She still had access to one shared email account Omari had forgotten existed. In it, buried under a year of noise, was a message from the merger buyers. She read it 3 times. The deal, the whole glittering deal that Omari loved more than his wife, was conditional. The buyers would not close until the company's existing debt was cleared or formally approved by the lender of record. The lender of record was her father's trust. Her trust. Omari could not close the deal of his life without the approval of the woman he left to die. She set the phone down. For the first time in weeks, something like a smile touched her face. Not cruel, just clear. She called Kwame herself. She did not wait for Friday. "I know what the trust does now," she said. "It holds his debt, and his merger cannot close without it, without me." There was a silence on the line. "You found that yourself," Kwame said. "Your father would be proud." A pause. "But, Nalady, there is one thing you still do not know, and it is the largest thing of all. Come to my office when they discharge you. Bring the envelope." "Which envelope?" "You know which one." Then the game reversed. The day before her discharge, a nurse came in looking nervous and asked if Nalady had a lawyer, because some people had filed papers about the baby. Kwame confirmed it within the hour. Folake, on behalf of Omari, had filed for emergency custody of the newborn. Their claim was simple and vicious. Milady had nearly died. She had been unconscious, unstable, medically unfit. A mother in her condition, they argued, could not be trusted with a fragile child. And a woman about to be divorced, with no home and no income, they added, had no means to provide. They were not just leaving her, they were trying to take her daughter. Milady held the baby so tightly, the nurse gently reminded her to breathe. This was the thing she had not seen coming. Not the money, not the mistress. This. They had turned the worst night of her life, the night they abandoned her, into a weapon to steal the only thing she had left. She did not cry. She looked down at her sleeping daughter, and she made a decision. "Kwame," she said into the phone, her voice very steady, "no more waiting. Tell me everything today." She was discharged that afternoon. She went straight to his office, the sealed envelope in her purse. Kwame's office was quiet and lined with old books. He poured her water. He did not sit behind his desk. He sat beside her, like family. "Your father did not simply leave you a trust. He left you control of it, full control. You are not a beneficiary who receives payments, Nalady. You are the named successor, the trustee. When your father died, that authority passed to you the moment you turned 30. That was 2 years ago. It has been sitting, quiet, waiting for you to claim it. he let that land. The trust holds Omari's debt. It funds his largest client, the very client the buyers most want. And by its own rules, no merger touching its assets can close without the trustee's signature. My signature. Your signature. Not Omari's, not Falake's, not the buyer's. He folded his hands. You do not own a piece of his world, Naledi. You are the ground it stands on. She sat with that for a long moment. Then she reached into her purse and set the envelope on the table. He told me to open this when I finally saw my husband clearly, she said. I think today is the day. She opened it at last. Inside was a single sheet in her father's hand and a small brass key. The letter was short. My Ada, if you are reading this, then a man has shown you who he truly is. Do not weep for what he took. Everything he built on the ground I left you. The key opens the box at Kwame's office. Inside is proof of all of it. You were never the poor one in your marriage, my daughter. You were the bank. Now act like your father's child, with mercy where you can and iron where you must. She did not cry. She folded the letter once and put it over her heart. When does the merger sign? She asked. Friday, Kwame said, at the signing gala. Every buyer, every partner, his mother, Bisola, the entire room that watched you disappear. Then that is where I will be. The gala was held in a grand hall with gold light and a long table set for the signing. Omari stood at the center of it, in his finest suit, Bisola glowing at his side, Falaki receiving guests like a queen. They had told everyone the lady was unwell, recovering, not herself, a sad chapter quietly closing. The buyers arrived, the papers were laid out, the pens were set in a neat silver row. And then the doors opened. Naledi walked in. She wore deep blue, her father's color. She was thinner than before and slower, but her back was straight and her eyes were clear. Kwame walked one step behind her with his leather folder. A hush moved across the room like a cold draft. Omari's smile froze. Naledi, you should be resting. I've rested enough, she said. Falaki stepped forward with a hostess smile and a low voice. This is not the place, dear. A clean break is kinder. Do not embarrass yourself in front of important people. I agree, Naledi said gently, so let us not embarrass anyone. She turned to the buyers, to the most senior man at the table, the one holding the closing pen. You cannot sign this tonight, and I can prove it in 1 minute. The man frowned. And who are you? Kwame opened his folder and laid the pages down, one by one, facing them. The lender agreement, the lender of record, the trust deed, and the successor filing, stamped and sealed, naming Naledi Obiora as sole trustee. I am the lender of record. The debt on this company is held by my father's trust. I control that trust. Nothing here closes without my signature. She looked at Omari for the first time. And I have not signed anything. The room turned to Omari. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. That's a lie, Bisola said quickly, too quickly. She's an unstable woman. She's been in a hospital bed for weeks. I have, Naledi agreed, and her calm was terrible. The same weeks in which my husband filed to divorce me and take my child. Would you like the dates read aloud? My lawyer has them. Falaki's smile finally cracked. Omari found his voice, low and furious. You wouldn't block this. You'd ruin me. You did that yourself, Naledi said, the night you told them not to call me when I died. The buyers were already gathering their coats. Peak 1 had landed, but she was not finished, because the second truth was worse. Before you all leave, there is one more thing this room should know. Kwame laid down the final documents. The shell company, the money moving twice, the account opened in Naledi's maiden name. For 3 years, my husband pledged assets against loans using accounts opened in my name, forging my signature. I never signed a single one. I never knew they existed. She let it settle. That is not a bad marriage. That is fraud, and fraud is a crime. Gasps moved through the room. And then, to everyone's surprise, Bisola stepped away from Amari's side, not toward him, away. She reached into her clutch and produced a phone. "I want it on record that I am cooperating," her voice suddenly clear and cold. "I was placed inside this company by people who wanted it. My job was to watch it fall. I have recordings. Him instructing the forged signatures. Him laughing about the wife who would never check." She looked at Omari with flat contempt. "You were always going to lose. I just made sure I wasn't standing next to you when you did." Omari staggered as if struck. The outsider he chose over his wife had never been on his side at all. Folake reached for her son's arm, and for the first time that night, her polished cruelty failed her completely. "Omari," she whispered. "Omari, what did you do?" Naledi watched them for one long, quiet moment. She did not gloat. She simply turned to the senior buyer. "The custody petition against me claimed I have no home and no income. My lawyer will show the court who truly owns the home and who has funded this man's every success since the beginning. That petition will not survive Monday morning." She turned back to Omari. "You tried to take my daughter to hide the fact that you took everything else. It was the last mistake you'll make with my name." She picked up the silver pen. She did not sign. She set it down again, gently, and walked out the way she came, her father's letter over her heart. Behind her, the empire built on her ground came down. The merger collapsed that night. The forged accounts became a criminal file within the week, and Omari surrendered his passport soon after. The custody petition died the moment the judge saw the deed and the trust and the medical record of the night he walked away. Folake's calls to Naledi were unanswered, then stopped. Bisola's rival firm never got their prize either. You cannot buy a company that no longer has a floor to stand on. Naledi took no pleasure in the ruin. She had loved that man once. She let herself grieve the boy who used to say ours. Then she let him go. She kept the trust, and she decided what her father's fortune would finally build. She went back to the hospital, not as a patient, as its largest donor. She funded a new recovery wing from mothers who nearly did not make it, staffed day and night so that no woman would ever lie in that bed alone the way she had. She opened a foundation for abandoned mothers, women left with a newborn and nothing else, giving them lawyers, shelter, and a way to stand. She named a scholarship after her father for young women studying to run the businesses their families said they never could. On the day the wing opened, she stood at the entrance with her daughter on her hip. A young mother stopped beside her, holding a tiny baby, her eyes red from a hard week. "Is it true," the woman asked, "that a woman built all this after her husband left her to die?" Naledi smiled softly and touched the little baby's hand. "A woman built this," she said, "after she remembered who she was." She reached into her bag and took out the worn envelope, her father's letter still folded inside. She held it a moment in the morning light. Then she slipped it back, close to her heart, and walked her daughter through the doors she had opened for everyone who would come after. She had not been rescued. She had risen. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell me in the comments where you were watching from, and I will see you in the next unforgettable story.